And we're back here at Google Next. Everyone, welcome back to the show. We've had so many great guests here today. Clive was here today. We've had Srini in here today. We've had did some recording of folks you haven't even seen yet. But we're delighted to be back live for another episode of Cloud Talk Live. All right, everybody, welcome back. You know the routine. Love for you to introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are. Tell us where in the world you are. I've told our guests this audience is global, so let's not make me a liar here today. But I'm so glad that you've connected back in with us. You can, of course, ask any questions or comment there in the description for in the chat down there below, whichever platform you are on. But also, if you want to get a hold of us, you can always do that via email. Just send a note over to solve@rackspace.com. As you know, Solve is our thought leadership program here at Rackspace. You can find all kinds of great information out if you just go over to rackspace.com/solve, soon to be AI enabled. And you'll be able to get, we've got the podcast out there, links to these live streams, and of course, a ton of great articles that we've either written ourselves or have different engineers and subject matter experts all around Rackspace who just share that with you. There's no cost, there's no fee, just head over there and get smarter. That's really what it's all about. Well, as we're here at Google Next this week, there have been an incredible amount of announcements. We're impressed with everything that Google is up to, but I'm more impressed with my next guest, and I can't wait to introduce you to Amy Waldron. Amy, welcome to Cloud Talk Live.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad that you are here. You made it across from the event center and found us, which is already half the battle.
Yep, that's great.
So you lead for North America Healthcare and Life Sciences. What does that actually mean?
So I'm responsible for healthcare and life sciences, the solution strategy.
Okay.
So I spend my time working with our customers across the industry and understanding what their business challenges are, what they're actually trying to add from a value perspective in the future, and then tie that back to how we can accelerate that with Google technology.
Yeah.
And so that means technology that we have if they want to build it, but more importantly, technology that a lot of our ecosystem comes together and solutions that they've created. So if you look at the ISV world, you look at the GSI and RSI world, like a lot of the speed to value comes from being able to kind of stitch together our ecosystem and create those solutions for our customers. So that's what I do.
Very cool. Now that sounds like a role that, it's how does somebody end up in that role? I think is how I really want to ask the question. Tell me a little about how you got here.
It was definitely an interesting road. I started out in consulting. So I spent 20 years at PwC, so an undergrad business degree, communications. Halfway through my career at PwC, I decided to get my MBA and wanted to tackle something that I didn't know that much about, so I chose technology.
Welcome to technology.
And little did I know I would end up here. Spent another 10 years at PwC, and then was asked to join a mission-based healthcare consulting firm. So was excited to do that. As you know, I have a child who was born with a half a heart, and so I have spent a lot of time being on the other side and navigating the patient world, so felt that this was something that I needed to do. And spent 5 years with the Chartist Group, and then ended up joining the Healthcare and Life Sciences team at Google in the solutions role. So it started out with being payer and provider, and now it's all of North America.
It's all the things. So is that seems to be a challenging role, just in the context that, when I think about healthcare and all the different industries that exist out there, they were ones that really were, I think, a little slower to the technology transformation game as we think of cloud. Absolutely.
So when I came on board a little over 5 years ago, there was definite hesitancy for, I would say, the life sciences and healthcare industry to embrace the cloud for many reasons. I think people were unsure of the security. They knew about the scale. They knew about the power of cloud technology, the power of AI, but using it in the industry because of that concern about security was one that it took the industry, I would say, a year or two to get over. When I looked at the market, probably 90% of the market 5 years ago was still on-prem.
Still on-prem.
And it's amazing.
That's not that long ago.
No, and it's amazing how fast the industry can move once it decides to move or has to move.
A catalyst.
So
You
Yeah.
had some show up and say, well, let's leave the stuff we have, but
Yeah.
maybe cloud first for the new things.
Exactly. So it was like 2 years later where everyone was saying cloud first because they knew innovation had to come.
Right.
They knew they needed the compute power, but they were still trying to figure out, you're right, it was like
Yeah.
the new versus a lot of, I would say,
Yeah.
the infrastructure
the
that
safe
exists.
stuff that's over there, I don't want to think about moving.
Yeah.
I don't want to clean the garage,
Yeah.
but for the new stuff, we'll do it
Yeah.
over here.
And then we had this little thing called COVID.
Oh, that.
And so that's where I think a lot of organizations realized, and even countries realized, that from a healthcare perspective, we have to get our data in order, but we also have to be using this technology because we were put in a position where we really had to keep people apart from each other.
Right.
And it didn't stop people from having cancer. It didn't stop people from having
Right.
all these medical challenges. It just made it more challenging.
Right.
And so we had to figure out, how do we accelerate going into a virtual or kind of a hybrid type environment? And that's when I think there was this massive jump into using it as a survival skill.
Yeah.
And now organizations, cloud technology has come incredibly far.
Right. It's
over the last
so much
couple
just
of
about,
years.
I can give you 1,000 servers in a second. It's so much more than that.
It's, now you look at it and people have comfort, like the security has come so far and the scalability has come so far. And the one problem that healthcare really had to tackle besides the safety and security was interoperability. Healthcare generates all this data in all these different formats, and in order to really take advantage of artificial intelligence, you have to be able to harmonize that data.
Right.
And that was something where, today we have come so far and we can do that with our interoperability capabilities, that the magic really is starting to come together for the industry, I think now.
Yeah. So when you think about, there was that, I'll call them the cloud curious, the new workloads that would go out, and then COVID comes along, and everybody just my phrase is they snow shoveled their data out to the cloud as fast as possible, just so that as everybody goes and works from home, that we could at least have access to the same content. But what didn't happen, which you're sort of calling out as an opportunity, is while there was that mass digitization, digital transformation, to use an old term, what didn't happen was the processes.
Yeah.
The processes weren't reevaluated. We talked earlier, and you said most folks who are in healthcare have a pretty strong why. You mentioned briefly yours, but you also exposed in that story, maybe you could retell it, the process that hindered healthcare.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about how generative AI, because there's all these great capabilities that I think will make amazing changes in healthcare for all of us. But what didn't change, we were able, I would say telehealth became embraced during COVID, and working on interoperability so that people could understand how to manage resources during, I would say, the intense part of the pandemic. But what didn't change are the things like the processes for prior authorization, for claims, a lot of, I would say, the fragmented and the administrative intensive processes didn't change.
Yeah.
And so the example we were talking about earlier is, my daughter had a heart transplant 2 years ago, and we had planned it out. We knew it was coming, and so we were living in the hospital for a few months before the transplant.
Amazing.
And she was ready. We were ready to go on the transplant list. And the doctor said, "Okay, we've got to start the prior authorization process." And I kind of was like, "What?"
Wait,
we know she's
been here for a few months now.
Yeah. And so they said, no, this is just part of the process. We've got to fill out this paperwork. It'll take about 2 weeks. And I sat there and couldn't believe, first of all, that this even had to take place, given, no one was surprised by this transplant. And the fact that I watched nurses and doctors gather this copious amounts of information and spend their time managing the administration back and forth when there's people that need to be cared for.
Yeah.
So, I sat there looking at this process, and they're everywhere. Processes like this are everywhere in healthcare, both on the payer and the provider side. And so you look at this and you say, how can we remove some of this administrative work across the entire system, especially when you look at the provider and nurse burnout problem that we have today. And even on the payer side, when information is coming in, they still have people on the other end doing data entry. Yeah. So AI and ML this is the perfect
scenario for it.
Perfect challenge for us to tackle.
And so you tackled it.
We did tackle it. We did tackle it about 6 or 9 months ago.
Okay.
We rolled out Claims Acceleration Suite, and the whole objective was to look at making information flow and taking out the administrative work. And so not only can we make the information flow and reduce the burden on clinicians and their teams, but also as we make the information flow, we're making it interoperable. And so the fun part about that is, as we talked about earlier, the healthcare system has tons of data everywhere on all of us.
Yeah.
It's all locked up everywhere. And so being able to make that information flow, then all of a sudden you start seeing value as a consumer that can come back to you.
Right.
And so we have been doing a lot with operational efficiency. And now with generative AI, we're going to see a massive acceleration of the value that comes from really removing a lot of that administrative work and being able to provide much better service to our doctors, our nurses, our patients. Because if we can use, there's two great, let's say, there's a lot of great technologies out there, but two packaged kind of solutions that Google recently released is we took Google Search and we have Vertex AI Search, which basically gives every organization the power of Google Search. Wow. So when you think about any type of activity in healthcare where someone has to dig into a system, go find information, read through PDFs, we now can use our Google Search technology to do a search and to actually summarize that information. So we're working with—
in a usable, tangible way.
Across the board, working with healthcare organizations so that we can give some relief to doctors and nurses with those administrative activities and free them up for what they want to do, help patients.
That's help patients. Face-to-face, help patients.
Yeah, we all win.
Yeah, we really do. So it's interesting. I had Clive in here earlier and some other folks, and there's a lot of trepidation that still exists out there with AI. I mean, there's been a lot of Hollywood movies and a lot of doom and gloom sayers. But when you think about this in the context of healthcare, really, everyone wins because there's already too much work, and that work is because of generally speaking, because of administrative burdens. And we can remove that. Then the doctors and nurses get to do what they have been called to do. Yeah. People get to receive service and support and healthcare in a personalized way. That again, everybody wins in that scenario.
Yeah, and I think you raise a great point about people being concerned about this technology. And we have been very, very forward-thinking with regards to how we do this. We have responsibility principles that have been governing us ever since we started working with AI. And we've been very vocal about generative AI. It needs to be governed. It needs to be governed the right way. We believe that the government needs to have a strong part in this. We believe people in industry have to have a very strong say in this. Right. It's an incredibly powerful technology, but it has to be used responsibly. And the healthcare industry has been, first of all, very interested and engaged in AI, and especially generative AI. But the reason why is because I do think that we're coming together and we are incredibly focused on making sure we're being responsible and safe.
Right.
And also there are a tremendous volume of low-risk, high-reward use cases when you think about all that administrative stuff that you can make flow. But there's also those controls where you have a link to see where this information came from. So there are controls built in so that there is a quality check. Yeah. And also right now, I think for the next, let's say 6 to 12 months, we're going to see a lot of that administrative stuff get better. And we're going to see really inroads. Like we've got MedPalm 2, which has been trained on a very large medical corpus. And we're experimenting with, some of the leading, like Mayo, and you look at HCA and Meditech, a lot of leading organizations on what is the right way to use this model and being responsible. Yeah. So you will start seeing more clinical application to this down the road. Right. But even before that becomes kind of in I would say GA available, there are so many things that can be done from an administration standpoint to improve all of our lives.
Right.
That,
Something as simple as administration.
Yeah.
And it is such a barrier to, to outcomes, and outcomes being patient health.
Absolutely.
So as we think about that, if you think about what's Google bringing to market, we think about the opportunities that exist. Let's look at the opportunities for what we can look for in the future. What does healthcare start to look like in the coming months and even years?
Great question. So I'll talk healthcare and I'll talk life sciences because there's a lot of great things going on both sides. I think from a healthcare perspective, we will start seeing the relief for physicians and their teams. We'll start seeing that in the near term, which I think everyone is looking forward to. We'll also start seeing the experience that consumers have with healthcare change pretty dramatically. And that's because of, we talked about Future. So you can go onto a website and you'll be able to ask a question. And instead of getting a whole bunch of links, you'll actually be served an answer with the link that correlates with that answer. And that's just the beginning. So, you take that search functionality and then you add conversational AI. And all of a sudden you can have a conversation with a website as opposed to kind of hunting and pecking. And that conversation is then going to be, connected into other resources that exist out there. So kind of that midterm is you're going to see, as the data starts getting organized, you're going to be able to talk via a website, or you'll be able to call them on the phone too. But you'll be able to have a conversation to find out, like, who's a doctor that's in network. I'd love to have an appointment on Wednesday with someone that is in network close to my office or close to the kids' school. And you're going to start seeing life getting a lot easier and streamlined because the data is getting organized. We have the technology, and a lot of payers and providers are looking at how they can create a better relationship with the consumer and a more valuable one. And we haven't seen much value, I think. Don't get me wrong, we've had points where we are getting value from the system, but it's incredibly frustrating. And I think that we will start to see some of that frustration go away. And we'll start getting more value back from all this data that the healthcare system is sitting on. And
I think we can start to see more outcome-driven solutions as well, as opposed to how many patients can I see as a doctor, how much good can I actually do.
And that's where, when you think about just medicine, I look at what we've been able to do with imaging, and we've already seen this. Like, we've worked with Mayo and HCA and with Hackensack Meridian and others to use AI and generative AI, but right now it's AI. Like, we'll be adding additional capabilities, but with our AI, we are helping them diagnose cancer quicker. We are helping.
You can just stop right there and be good. That's great.
But that's important.
It's
talk
super
about
important.
catching. It's cervical cancer, it's prostate cancer, it's breast cancer. So being able to leverage. AI is a great partner. So you
that's
look
really
at
how
that
it
partnership.
Should be viewed.
If they can diagnose cancer faster, then they can intervene faster. And that's just the beginning. And then when you look at the biotech and the pharmaceutical side, they're able to use AI and generative AI to speed up research. So I was blown away by how fast the industry was able to create a vaccine for COVID. And that really was everyone, technology and medicine, coming together.
It's amazing when there's a common outcome, a common enemy in this case. That people can really rally around that.
Absolutely, and that, it does. Like, sometimes those things make us shine. And now what you're seeing is what we had to do, be more proactively planned. And there are, so many companies out there like Bayer and Ginkgo Bioworks. Like, they are creating platforms to really take large language models and take the research process for drug discovery and even agricultural and industrial manufacturing. Those types of R&D projects are being accelerated now with the technology we have today. And that's where I think people, even though this is science, it's amazing how quickly it's going to have a positive impact for all of our lives.
Well, I was talking earlier to Clive, and I used when we think about cybersecurity, I use the phrase, it used to be, how do I find the needle in the haystack of the bad guy doing bad things? Now it's the needle in the needle stack. It's so archaic. But when you think about AI and the massive compute capabilities that exist and the ability for it to create correlations where the human brain just could never find that type of thing, then as, to use your example, if we can detect illness earlier and earlier, then perhaps we get to a point where we can see some causation as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be able to recognize, is it environmental? Is it because people, are in a climate or around exposed to whatever they might be exposed to?
Yeah, and I think it's a terrific point. I think we will see those things.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of AI being used environmentally. I mean, it's wonderful, like especially with climate change and other types of things. So AI really is being used everywhere. When I think about medicine, what we're already seeing now from a research perspective, especially as you look at genomics, is that down the road when someone has a cancer and we have the pathology of it, we'll actually be able to look at the cohorts of genomics. And I say we, it's not us.
Right.
It really, I mean, like we're not in that business, our customers.
Sure.
Our customers are using our technology, but the data resides with our customers. But they're gonna be able to look at what drugs are the most effective for this type of genomic human being and this type of cancer.
Right.
And so we are gonna get much better with regards to cures. And really the end game here is allowing people to actually live their life outside of the hospital. And it's healthier people, healthier communities, and better yet, more access. There's a ton of people who still don't have access to healthcare. We take it for granted.
We really do. But imagine when the corpus of human healthcare can be accessed on a mobile device, and now those mobile devices are in sub-Saharan Africa, where you might not find a lot of doctors, but they will have access to the information they might need.
It's exciting.
It is an exciting thing. Amy, thank you so much for being on the program today. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I mean, it really does sound like you're doing the Lord's work here.
We're on it together. I mean, this is a big pull for all of us.
It really is. Well, thank you so much. Everyone, if you want to learn more, you can, of course, head over and you can follow Amy on LinkedIn. Amy Waldron is over there. You've seen a post coming up, a QR code for more information from us as well. And if you're here at Google Next, we'll head over to booth 217. We'd love to visit with you there. Everyone, this has been a great time to visit with you. Wonderful to have Amy with us today. And we look forward to our next chance to visit with you. I think this is the last live from Google Next, but I'll be back with you next week. Don't worry about that. Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.